welcome to A Year of Hitchcock Movies. We are your hosts, Jeff and Diane, and this is movie number 41, North by Northwest from 1959. Now, during production of last week's movie Vertigo, Alfred Hitchcock was in the process of securing a one-picture deal with MGM Studios. He only ends up doing one movie with MGM. And he was actually allowed to do that while he was under contract to Paramount. And he actually decides to adapt a novel called The Wreck of the Mary Dear, a very successful novel, and is immediately introduced to the screenwriter named Ernest Lehman, because Ernest's best friend Bernard Herrmann, of course, had been working with Alfred Hitchcock and does the music for all these great movies that we're all in the middle of. So they start working on this thing, and it turns out that Mr. Lehman really didn't think that it was a very interesting story and didn't think it was going to turn into a good movie, and pretty much asked to be taken off the project. But Alfred said to him, you know, we get along so well, they'd been talking together and having dinner and drinks together, that, okay, fine, let's not do that. We'll do another project for MGM. How about we do a spy thriller? And told him some ideas that had been rattling around in his head for the last 3 years. And basically, based on those ideas and based on what Hitchcock told him, he basically goes and writes the script to North by Northwest. That's it. And not only that, but he sets out to write, in his own words, the Hitchcock picture to end all Hitchcock pictures. So that's pretty good. And this actually becomes one of the very few Alfred Hitchcock movies that is just basically a completely original screenplay. It's not based on a book, not based on a play, not based on a short story, not taken from the headlines. It really is just something that is original. Although it must be said that the storyline certainly is going to sound familiar to you Hitchcock people who've watched 40 movies so far, 39 Steps, Saboteur, Wrong Man. Incidentally, The Wreck of the Mary Dear was actually made into a movie in 1959, not by Alfred Hitchcock, and it's starring Charlton Heston and Gary Cooper. Gary Cooper was someone that Alfred Hitchcock wanted to work with all those years, so we don't know why. But anyways, much like Samuel Taylor last week writing Vertigo based on what Hitchcock told him, Ernest Lehman go ahead and does this, and he had Cary Grant in mind the whole time he was writing it. And that's great, because Cary Grant's in it, and this is the fourth, and I'm sad to say the final appearance by Cary Grant in a Hitchcock film. You remember that Alfred Hitchcock brought Cary Grant out of retirement to do To Catch a Thief. Cary Grant had retired because he felt that he was old. Well, even past this one, he'll star in 6 more movies, including one of our favorite movies, not by Alfred Hitchcock, 1963's Charade with Audrey Hepburn. So he just doesn't work with Alfred Hitchcock anymore. Also here is Eva Marie Saint, and we remember her from her Oscar-winning performance in On the Waterfront, 1954. And Hitchcock insisted on her. The studio had a few ideas who they wanted him to go with, but he really wanted to work with her. And you know, the bottom line is they got along great. He just loved her. It was awesome. Proceeds like he did with previous actresses to get all the outfits that he wanted. He was very specific about her look for this film, and you'll see how it turns out. And he has none of the drama that we saw last week in the Vertigo with the leading lady last week that he had. So Leo G. Carroll is in this movie. He makes his 6th and final appearance in Hitchcock movies. He just had an excellent role in Spellbound. Probably the best part of Spellbound is Leo G. Carroll, well, and Ingrid Bergman. But Leo G. Carroll, of course, was the actor that appeared in more Hitchcock films than anyone except for Claire Greet, who is in 7, and Alfred Hitchcock, who, of course, is in a lot of them as a cameo. So a couple more people to talk about. James Mason is in it. I recognize James Mason because I've seen Heaven Can Wait 1,000 times with Warren Beatty. This is an early movie role for Martin Landau. He was in a million movies, and for those young people like me, this is what Martin Landau looks like when he's older, but he's young in this one. And we see again Jessie Royce Landis. She was in To Catch a Thief. She played Grace Kelly's mom in To Catch a Thief. And tonight she actually ends up playing Cary Grant's mom. Even though Jessie Royce Landis was only 7 years older than Cary Grant, she plays his mother. I'm sure she wasn't thrilled about that. So, and yes, members of our Hitchcock Dream Team, as I'm calling them, are on board. And you know, what a relief for Alfred Hitchcock, because as we know, and with this movie as well, he knew exactly how this movie was to appear. It was already done in his brain, and he's got the people to do it, and he can trust them now. He's been together with these people for a few films. The quote that I like to think about when I think about the people he worked with to get what was in his brain into the movie was that he was happy if he got 75% of what he'd seen in his head in the film. And I think that number was pretty high tonight. So at this point we're talking Robert Burks with his fantastic cinematography, George Tomasini with his crisp editing. George Tomasini is actually nominated for an Oscar for his editing in tonight's film. Bernard Herrmann with another fantastic music score. Perfect, and in many ways his music makes these movies. No Edith Head though, doing costume design on this one, but that's okay because Alfred Hitchcock has got a black belt in designing his leading ladies at this point. And Saul Bass does the opening title sequences. He did the opening title sequences in Vertigo, and this is an interesting thing about Saul Bass because this is happening right now in 55, 56, 57, 58, 59. He was a graphic designer that he does the opening title for Vertigo, North by Northwest, and next week's Psycho. Before him, when a movie started and you saw the title and who was in it and who directed it, it was very static and boring and nothing happened, and he sort of brings it to life. And you know, he does it in the movie Anatomy of a Murder with James Stewart in 1958. When you see it, you recognize it. Of course now, these days, it's much copied, but boy, I sure knew at the time. Now there's a cameo to look for, you won't miss it, and you know, due to all these cameos that he's done all these years, and the fact that he's on television every week now and he's quite famous, he needed to get the cameo out of the way right away to stop audiences from being distracted and looking for him and wrecking it. So this one's pretty early on, so look for it. So here we go. Let's watch this great movie, this North by Northwest movie from 1959, and we look forward to it, and we'll see you after the movie. Let's watch.